Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Jamie Messina. I am very excited, as always, to be with you here today. Everybody on the webinar, and I see there's lots of countries represented from all over the world, people on the phone, you are in for an amazing treat today. Fresh back from a 2-week tour in Europe, doing amazing events and hosting and sharing what this opportunity NHT Global is doing for countless people around the world. Dan Catto is going to share with us and share that energy with us as to what this opportunity is doing, why this is the next trillion-dollar industry. So for those of you on the webinar, please, please, please make sure you have pen and paper handy, because there's going to be some major nuggets of information that you are going to want to use to share with your teams, to share with people you're sharing this business with, and of course, to be able to learn from. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the call over to my good friend, Mr. Dan Catto. The call is all yours.
Jamie, thank you. Thanks for that great introduction. Appreciate that. And appreciate all that you've done for us as a partnership here with our business around the world. And I know you just got back from the UK, and they're pretty excited about our business, our opportunity, certainly our industry and our products and all that we have to offer. Jamie, just quickly before we get started here, I want to do a sound check to make sure I'm clear.
Loud and clear, buddy.
Thanks very much. Okay, gang, very, very, very excited about our call here today. A number of things, and you're going to understand that as I go forward here. Excuse me, I've had quite a morning because I've been on with Asia for a lot of the morning. They're 12 hours ahead of us, but it's really what I want to talk to you about today. This may not be as long a call as we've had in the past, where typically our webinars have been at least 45 minutes to an hour. This one might be under 30 minutes, but I really want to cut to the chase and to the point about our industry, who we are, where this industry came from, how we evolved, where we are today, but most importantly, where is this industry going, and why is it not just growing, but and not moving like a wave, but like a tsunami? And how this has all happened. So please take some notes. I'm going to be moving fairly quickly here with my partner, James Messina, as he's going to be moving along with our slides and some of the nuggets and points that I'm going to share with you. But I'm going to get right into it. How this all evolved from my viewpoint, but from what I've been able to see over the years, it started back in 1988 when I got involved in the industry for the very first time. When I saw the industry, gang, I did not understand it. I had all of the preconceived misconceptions on this industry. Didn't understand it, didn't know it. If you say that our industry, one of the direct sales, direct marketing, network marketing, multi-level marketing, MLM, which has evolved into, and we're going to be talking about this as we move along here over the next few minutes. But when I couldn't spell MLM, frontwards or backwards, did not get it or understand it. I had come from a corporate background. I'd spent 10 years in the corporate world. I'd spent 2 years in private business. I did not understand this industry. I lost it all back in 1988. And saying losing it all, I was losing really virtually everything. I'd lost my job with a company. It was spun out by a U.S. parent. I went into business for myself. That went under after a couple of years. Went into bankruptcy. Had to move back in with my parents. I was on government assistance. My wife had left me. My health was leaving me. I was not at a good point in my life, and I was in my early 30s at that time, but I'd had a corporate background, a business background, and a business background in terms of owning your own business. So when I saw this industry, I had come from a very traditional background in being an employer and in being an employee. And again, having all of the misunderstood misconceptions on this industry. I thought this industry was illegal, thought it was a pyramid. I thought only the person at the top made the most money. All of this stuff that has been out there in terms of scrutiny over the years, this is kind of what I thought it was, and I understood 30 years ago, but again, not understanding it. But here's what was kind of happening in my world. First of all, I was broke. And I remember 30 years ago, June 1988. This is the anniversary, my 30th year anniversary of being involved in this industry. I remember reading that the average millionaire goes broke 2.5 times before he makes it. Well, that made me feel pretty good because I was certainly right on track. But I also read a quote by Arthur Schopenhauer, the great German philosopher. But 150 years ago, he said every truth goes through 3 phases. First, it's ridiculed, then it's opposed, then it's served as self-evident. And in 1970, Alvin Toffler's book, Future Shock, he said the future, for you to survive and thrive, first of all, what's going to happen is that the learned are going to have to be unlearned, and then they're going to have to relearn. Very interesting. This is 1970. Charles Darwin said, one of the greatest philosophers in history, said that the true genius in life was the ability to adapt and adjust to change. For things to change, for me back in 1988, I had to change. And I knew the one constant in life, starting to understand that, was change. Well, I got involved in the industry in 1988, not understanding what was going on, but I did meet some very young people that were younger than myself, and I was in my early 30s, and they were in their 20s, and they were living a life in a world that I just couldn't understand, but I got that if they could do it, I could do it. They were earning a 7-figure residual income, not having to work. I had to figure this thing out. So I got involved in 1988, but in 1989, I read a book by Paul Zane Pilsner called Unlimited Wealth. And Pilsner, at that time, had just finished being a part of the former Bush and Reagan administration as one of the top economists in the world and the former chief economist with the Bush and Reagan administration. And in writing his book, Unlimited Wealth, he said wealth was going to be created in the 1990s and in the coming century, the one that we're in right now, in 3 areas: communication, distribution, and technology. Was he right? He was dead on. In 1994, Bill Gates' book, The Road Ahead, The Future of Microsoft, he predicted in that book that everyone in the 21st century in the world would have eventually, ultimately, inevitably, a computer in their home. Well, Jobs took that a little bit further in 2007 when he introduced the iPhone. Went from the home to your pocket to your purse. So it was pretty interesting what was happening. And today, just recently, the Wall Street Journal said the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, today with a company could be and probably is more important than the Chief Executive Officer of that company, the CEO. So what was happening? How did this evolve? More importantly, where was this thing going? Well, let's go back a couple of 100 years ago and take a look at how did we buy stuff 200 years ago? You bought stuff from somebody or from a store or a shop, little stores and shops, or you bought it from somebody. So then what happened? About 50 years later, which is around 150 years ago, department stores came into play in North America and over in Europe. It started in North America. Department stores went through massive scrutiny when they were first introduced. Why? Because it was compromising and a major threat to all of those little shop owners and store owners, those little mom and pops that they had where everybody was buying stuff. It was a couple of votes in Congress being deemed illegal. That was department stores. Then what happened? Franchising. Franchising about 75 years ago came into play in North America and has now become a worldwide phenomenon over the last 75 years. And it was one vote from Congress being deemed illegal because it was a massive threat to the little storefront and the department stores. And then what happened? E-commerce. E-commerce today represents 20% of all global distribution around the world in terms of sales. And is it growing? It's absolutely exploding. So gang, take a look at where this has evolved. Let's go back to the department stores, Sears Roebuck, the Walmarts. Then you had McDonald's. Today you've got Amazon, Alibaba. All three areas of distribution here were this. Dining with the classes, you had to get to the masses. And this is what we were doing in all three areas in terms of distribution. Well, just recently, this was maybe about 12 years ago, Thomas Friedman's book, The World is Flat. In his book, he's talking about the emerging markets in China. And if your business model currently today, when he wrote the book, or in the future, in terms of your business model, if it doesn't have China in it or the emerging markets in your business model, you could be left behind. And if you take a look at what Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler's book, In Abundance, in their book In Abundance, he talks about a farmer in Kenya today has access to more information than the President of the United States did 25 years ago. And gang, just 20 minutes before I got onto this webinar, I'll give you an idea of what's happening just in our world in terms of our business, just in mine, and this is what's happening in our industry. I just got on my WeChat coming through, no, pardon me, on my WhatsApp, and I'm not even that tech savvy as a lot of my people know, but it come through on my WhatsApp. One of my distributors that I have in Finland had just done a meeting in Tanzania in Africa to a sold-out congregation which was done in a church of about 150 distributors and customers that were purchasing, acquiring product, and getting involved in our business in Tanzania. So this is happening around the world in our industry, literally at our fingertips, where products are being sold and people are getting involved in our industry and getting involved in our business. Now, over 30 years ago, this is maybe 31 years ago, I had a conversation with a distributor, a lead distributor, top distributor in our industry that I didn't quite understand. I won't say the name of the company that he was involved in at that time, but just for all due respect in terms of names of companies, but the name of that company started with an A and ended with a Y, but he was a top distributor with them. I didn't understand, certainly the industry, as I shared with you, I didn't understand what he was doing, but he was earning a seven-figure income 31 years ago. That I kind of understood, but I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any millionaires. I didn't know anybody who was earning that kind of an income. We're having a little business chat, and he, was very calm about his seven-figure income, but what he said he was most excited about was the new product they introduced. And I said, what was that? And he said, toilet paper. I said, why are you so excited about that? He said, well, my income went up over $10,000 a month when they introduced toilet paper. I didn't get it then, but I understood it, and I understand it today. Traditional business today that we kind of understand, like McDonald's, when McDonald's introduced McChicken and McPizza years ago, within 30 days, they became the largest distributor of chicken and pizza in North America, outselling all of the competition combined. They weren't in the pizza business. They weren't in the chicken business. They were in the distribution business. So understanding, going back to what I was sharing with you at the outset of our webinar here, in Paul Zane Pilsner's book, Unlimited Wealth, communication, technology, and distribution were the areas that wealth was going to be created in the coming years and certainly in this century. So what is happening? Let's take a look at Paul Zane Pilsner's latest book. His latest book, The Next Trillion, is this industry. That is e-commerce coupled with direct sales, direct marketing, and network marketing with health and wellness. What a perfect marriage. This relationship has caused an absolute explosion in 2001, 2002, 2003. And if you take a look at the numbers in our industry and what's happened, we call it today virtual franchising. Virtual franchising, basically what is going on with our industry, it is predicted to surpass franchising within the next few years. That's direct sales, direct marketing, network marketing, all of that combined will surpass franchising again in just the next few years. Today, it's a $250 billion industry. Over $500 million is being paid out a day in commissions. The top income earners in our industry, when I got involved, were around $300,000 a month. Today, it's over $1 million a week, and they predict in the next few years, it'll eclipse $1 million a day in terms of commissions. It's a fact. The Direct Sellers Association just released this. Last year, 82% of the women in North America that earn a six-figure income or earn a seven-figure income earn it in this industry. That's called a clue. So for all of these millionaire maidens, they don't marry for money. They go where the money is, then they fall in love. What is so cool about this industry and what's going on is that it's not local, it's not regional, it's global. We're reaching now 7 billion people. But gang, it's bigger than that. And this is what it is. What is happening here is that it's addressing the social, economic, and gender inequality that's plaguing the world today. Really what's happening now is that everybody has a shot. Give you an idea, the fastest growing market today, this was a fact by the Direct Sellers Association, the DSA, the fastest growing market today in the world is Africa. The largest democracy and fastest growing middle class in the world is India. A third of China is online. Another two-thirds to come, but it's coming. And China, in terms of our business, is absolutely exploding. All a part of what Friedman had talked about in his book, The World is Flat. Everyone is having a shot. Doesn't matter what country you're from. It doesn't matter the size, the age, your sex. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's where you want to go, what's inside of you, and the price you're prepared to pay. But how fast does that happen? We'll talk about that more just in a second. So when you see all of this and what is happening, the most successful reps, distributors, and leaders that we have in our industry around the world, again, gang, they're not men, they're women. What else is happening? Well, let's take a look at this, and let's take a look at traditional business. As I said, this was going to be a shorter call today. This is going to be a faster call, quicker call, and I just wanted to go over this with you. But if you take a look at traditional business today, somebody is going into a franchise, someone who is starting up and starting their own business, versus working for someone, because the dream for so many people is to be in business for themselves and be their own boss. But what is it like for the average person who wants to start up their own business? Well, let's take a look at it. If we can, Jamie's bringing up this for you. If you take a look at traditional business and franchising to the left, my background was traditional business. I was in the corporate world, owned and operated my own importing company. My partner, Joe Garcia, had a franchise. So between him and I, we've got over 30 years now, 60 years in terms of combined full-time experience in this industry. Our background was traditional business and franchising. This is what's happening in virtual franchising, this industry that we're talking about in terms of what happens when you get started. Now, if you take a look at traditional business and franchising, look at the column down the middle. It says, first of all, is it for the masses? Traditional business and franchising, it isn't for the masses. Virtual franchising is absolutely for the masses. In terms of startup costs, what does it cost you when you go into business for yourself or start up in a franchise? Well, most cases, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, in a lot of cases, hundreds of thousands. A Class A, A1 franchise today in North America is going to cost you several $100,000. If you want one of those premier franchises, like a McDonald's, you're looking at several $1 million in terms of startup costs. What does it cost you in a virtual franchise? To the right there, just a few $100. Take a look at the ongoing overhead and expenses that you've got. To the left, which is your business, traditional business and franchising, it's a lot and it's going to be ongoing. Virtual franchising, it's very little. In most cases, it's a few $100s a month in terms of ongoing overhead. Any employees? Traditional business? Oh yeah, tons. If you've got a McDonald's franchise, you're going to have a building full of teenagers. You leave your home with your kids, you're going to have a building full of teenagers. In virtual franchising, virtually no employees. What about time? Business Week just a couple of years ago said that the average person who's starting up in a franchise of running a business today in their own business is putting in somewhere between 40 to 80 hours a week. In some cases, some of them are putting in over 100 hours a week. My 2 years when I owned and operated my own business, and Garcia would tell you the same thing when he had his franchise, we were putting in over 80 hours a week. In a virtual franchise, you virtually make your own time. I know my wife, she, after just a few years, she got to see what it was like in terms of time. Someone asked her, so Robin, my wife's first name here, gang, asked her, so when do you get up in the morning? She says, when I finish sleeping. You make your own time here. How about as an asset? Yes, traditional business and a franchise can be an asset. In virtual franchising, for the most part, it's an appreciating asset. The coming months and the coming years, your asset will appreciate and becoming more in terms of value. How about residual income? What we're talking about in terms of residual income is this. In traditional business, franchising or your regular traditional business, we call it active income. You work, you get paid. You stop working, you stop getting paid. And in a lot of cases, if you stop working, your business will implode and crash. In virtual franchising, residual income, not overnight, but over time, is you'll have this income, this residual income, that will pay you while you're not working. My partner, Mr. Garcia, has got a famous story about his wife waking up one day with him, and Joe had said to her, you know, Margaret, we make more money while we're asleep than we do when we're awake, and she told him to go back to sleep. And that is a true quote and story. Let's go along here. Can you sell it and will it? In not all situations in a traditional business or a franchise. In virtual franchising, absolutely. Are there tax advantages? Huge tax advantages that you've got in virtual franchising. And yes, in traditional business you do, but they're limited. You've got greater tax advantages in your own virtual franchise that you work from home. In terms of leverage, it's limited in the traditional business, massive in the virtual franchising. And what I mean by massive, it's global. You've got the corporate support of a company or a corporation that is working for you in terms of distribution, in terms of a lot of marketing, in terms of a lot of the employees and the staffing. They do it at their end. And there's so much more in terms of leverage. How about your territory and your market? In traditional business, it's local and regional. And in virtual franchising, it's global. What about the future? Traditional business and franchising, gang, it's flat. And virtual franchising, it's absolutely exploding. So if this at all is making sense to any of you, for what has happened for so many of us here and my partner, I got to understand this industry 30 years ago. But back in 2001, my partner and I were part of a launch of a company that was private at the time that eventually went public, that today trades on the NASDAQ. Most scrutinized, NASDAQ is probably the most scrutinized index in the world today. And Fortune 100 has just ranked us in the last 3 years. Well, 3 years ago, we were number 2. But basically the fastest growing publicly traded company in the world, moving products that are not hamburgers, shoes, or clothing, but products that have got Nobel Prize winning research behind it, and has an e-commerce business model that is now being taught at the finest universities in the Far East, the universities of Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. So, you know, I've always said that there's 3 types of people. There's people that'll make things happen. There's people that'll watch things happen. Then there's the others that'll wonder what the heck has happened. They said that the teacher will arrive when the student is ready. Well, the teacher and the opportunity gang has arrived here today in the fastest growing arena and area in terms of distribution in the world today, and the fastest growing publicly traded company in the world today. So if you're a guest on this call, certainly get back together with a person who put you onto this call and give you more information about what we're doing. And gang, if you're a leader in our organization, on our team, hopefully some of the information I've shared with you will bring some value to you and your business and your future. So thank you very much. Jamie, thanks so much for helping me out here with the slides. Gang, have a great day, have a great weekend, and a wonderful future here with NHD. Bye, everybody.